Welcome everyone to another NASCAR Heat Evolution video. In this video, we're going to be looking at the setup for Homestead Miami Speedway. Homestead is an interesting track in this particular game because of the way you can run it. You can run anywhere on the track from the bottom to the top. So it can be interesting to run. But before we get into the setup itself, let's take a look at some lap times. We'll start with the AI. At max difficulty AI, which is 105%, they qualify on the pole at about a 31.2 second lap, and their race pace is about a half second slower than that at a 31.7. So that's what you can expect to need as far as lap times if you're going to compete or beat them. The setup I'm going to show you today will run lap times anywhere from 30.8 to a 31 flat. I've got a couple of laps that I'm going to show you at the very end of this video that are simply 31.2 second laps. And that was basically easy does it. That was, not really running the car hard. That was running in the middle of the track. So again, nothing aggressive on those laps that you're going to see. So with the lap and the setup combination here, I think you're going to be able to easily deal with the AI at max difficulty. Okay, with lap times out of the way, let's jump into the setup. Shocks we're going to skip over because nothing has changed here. 10s across the board. Weight settings, yes, we're on another oval, so we keep the left weight at 54.2%, which is maxed out. Front weight on this particular track, I've put at 50.2 simply because you spend a lot of time in the gas on this particular track, but you need to really have the car rotate through the tight corners since you don't have a tri-oval or anything like that to widen out the arc of the corner. You really need the car to rotate, so I've dropped that down to 50.2 for this track. Wedge is stable at 51.0, and both front and rear ride heights are at the minimums of 4 inches. Now on the front springs, I needed the car to turn just a little bit better here getting into the corner, so I've used 200 pounds more in the left front than the right front. So we go with the maximum left front spring of 1,200 pounds and again 200 pounds less on the right front spring. That helps us get into the corner. In the rear of the car, we've got a 100-pound rear spring split by using the left rear spring of 400 pounds and a right rear of 500 pounds. Again, this is something that if you find the car needs to rotate a little bit better, particularly coming off the corner, you can either go up on the right rear, down on the left rear. Either one of those should help the car turn. We move over to tire pressures. Tire pressures are exactly the same as what I used at Michigan, and the reason is that seemed to be a good amount of turn in the car. I've found over the last few tracks that using the tire pressures difference between left and right sides is a good way to help the car's overall rotation. So I use 25s on the left side and 40 pounds on each of the right sides. Again, if you feel like you need the car to turn more, feel free to go up on the right side pressures or down on the left side pressures. Moving over to the miscellaneous settings, we'll talk about camber. As always, the camber is maxed out on both the left front and the right front. Let's move on to the sway bar. Sway bar I keep usually fairly standard at 1.5. Again, haven't really seen much reason to change that so far. Rear sway bar, have not had a reason to use that so far. And that brings us to the track bar. Track bar, in this case, you have a lot of adjustability. I've chosen to use a slight negative 0.5 inches for the balance here. Left side is at 12.5 inches, right side is at 12 inches even. This is one of those things that is an easy way to make the car more or less prone to turning to the left down the straightaway and in the corner. So if you really want the car, if you feel like the car is tight and it's not rotating as well, go up on the track bar a half inch or a full inch and you should notice a fairly big difference, particularly coming off the corner. Brake bias you won't need at this track, although I will say that brake bias could be used on corner entry to keep the car under control if needed. It could also be used to get the car down to the bottom if that's the groove you want to run. So that's something you could play around with if you do like to use a little bit of brake on corner entry. Grill tape, as always, doesn't seem to have an effect. Wheel lock and steering offset, I've not touched. And that brings us finally to our gearing settings. First, second, third, and fourth gear, all standard, with the most important for me, fourth gear being at a 1.0. That brings us to our rear end gear, which is a 3.33. Now I can tell you, as mentioned in previous videos, you can use this rear end ratio to adjust the handling of the car, as well as all the other options you see on the screen. In this case, I left a 3.33 gear in, as that pretty much maxes out the RPMs of around 9,000 or so going into the corners. Had I backed off of that, that would have lowered the RPM some and would have probably loosened up the car some, based on the feedback I've gotten from previous tracks. I didn't spend a whole lot of extra time dealing with that, simply because the setup was already several tenths faster, even at a leisurely pace around the track, which is what you're going to see in the laps immediately following this discussion. Even at a leisurely pace of a 31.1, 31.2 second lap, you're still going to be at about a half second per lap faster than the AI on max difficulty. So I really didn't have to worry about it a whole lot. This should easily allow you guys to get the elite status on this particular track. As always, I hope you found this video enjoyable and learned something from it. And stay tuned for more NASCAR Heat Evolution.